Good morning and welcome to this week's IGTV. Today I'm talking about using contracts with your teen to ensure their performance in school, efforts, grades, privileges, all of that stuff. Because this is a really common topic that comes up in my parenting group and with the parents that I have the privilege of working with. And it makes sense, right? Like, if your teen is not going to perform, or they're just simply, they don't care, they're sloughing off, they're not handing in assignments, they're not even showing up for school, then they need to grow up a little, maybe, and have you prepare them for the real world and show them what a contract looks like so they start to understand what the heck responsibility and accountability are to get their butt in gear and do school, right? Okay, so that's what I'm going to break down for you today. My name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, one of the first 70 people in Canada to hold both designations. I have had the privilege of working with parents of tweens and teens for the last 16 years to empower them to end the baffling blow-ups, emotional and painful disconnection, and really stressful silences. Instead, to lower stress, improve communication, and build lasting relationships based on trust and mutual trust and respect. I was also a very troubled teen myself. I went from straight A's to failing out, F's, like failing out, redoing classes, and my parents did the best they could too, and they did what they knew. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. So just put actually, first, if you're watching on Instagram, I'd love a follow. If you hit the follow, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'd love to subscribe. Is using contracts as a mean to get your teenager to be more responsible for their schoolwork? Is this something that sounds familiar to you? Like, type a yes in the comments if this is on par for you. Because if it's not for you, I want you to send this, share this live, or share this after I get it posted with someone who is struggling with this, because it's a thing. It's a real thing. Okay, so this is the kind of comments that I get from parents regularly, and it's okay. All parents that I come in contact with are caring, courageous, loving, and absolutely want the best for their teenagers. So I'm going to just state that, okay? And pretty much all parents, including myself, were raised with an outdated model. And so there's this tension right now as a parent, Gen X, Gen Z, millennial parent that is existing between an outdated parenting model and that isn't working with our teens and probably is getting you more defiance, backtalk, disrespect, lying, even less motivation, if there is such a thing, less motivation. They're handing in less assignments and they're blowing off school even more. So that's what I want to get to today. So the first thing is I want to read to you the definition of a contract. Actually, I want to put a couple steps before that. So if you're using a contract with your teenager to get them to be accountable. Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that my content is helping you and your mom. I want to go back for a second. The use of a contract just makes sense as a parent, okay? Because the outdated model that you and I were raised in, or for sure your parents were raised in, because it wasn't disproven until 1960, and it's still wildly pervasive in the school system and everywhere else, this contract that you might be wanting to use is a form of, like, it's enforcement. It's like if they sign on the line, then it has to mean something, and you're trying to teach them accountability and responsibility. And that it all makes sense. From your perspective. Hello. Hi, Robin from Sydney. So the purpose of a contract in the way that you may have intended it, okay, is control. A contract is used for the purpose of control. Now I'm going to break this down first, so stick with me, Because again, this is not about blame and shame. This is about empowerment. You're an amazing parent just because you're here. You're listening. So high five to you, okay? Share this live if this is helpful to someone else that you know who has a teen, okay? So here's the definition of a contract. It is a written or spoken agreement, especially one concerning employment, that is intended to be enforceable by law. That's the key part I want to tell you. Enforceable by law, okay? So if you're writing a contract with your teenager to get them to buck up at school and participate a whole heck of a lot more, what you're writing with them is a contract because what you are looking for is another means of control. You're using a contract as a means of control because when you write that contract in your head, that's the whole thing, is that if your teenager does not live up to their part of the contract, which was probably signed under duress, but we're not going to get into that, you have immediate justification because it says it's enforceable by law. So your household law, right? You're the parent, right? So your law in your household is that it's enforceable by law. And so you're using the contract as a means to control. And justification for any immediate, I'm going to say consequences. Come on, it's punishment. Punishment is the purpose of eliciting fear or pain in order to change behavior immediately. A punishment is used to elicit fear or pain in your teenager. So they immediately shift their behavior to the way that you deem it valuable or want it to be. Okay? So if your teenager wasn't performing at school already, okay? And I'm not saying passing, fail it, I don't care, okay? I was, again, the straight A kid, literally the straight A kid. And in a period of about 5 months, I went to F's and failing out. I actually just found my report card and the F's, and I had to retake classes. It's on my dogwood. That's right. Nobody ever asked. Nobody cared. If your teenager's it's not just about the grade, because again, your teenager's grades are not for the purpose of validating your worth as a human, validating the quality of your parenting. Your teenager's grades are not a means of fulfilling an insecurity that is yours to manage, but now projected on your teenager. And I'm saying this from my own experience. Okay, y'all? Okay, look at me. I was raised likely in a similar bent. Okay, we didn't grow up in the same house. I was raised similar to you. And when my kids got into school, you don't think that I wanted to be the most amazing parent there and I wanted to pat my little automaton robots on the head because they were well behaved and doing what the teacher said and they were the smart kids and yes, I did. I totally did. 100% I did that because I had my own insecurity and was raised to believe that my children were an extension of me. Therefore, if they were the good kids, or at least they flew under the radar and I didn't get messages home from the school about skipping and failing and everything, I was a good parent. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. You can have a gifted kid and not be a great parent. There is specific DNA and physiology in their brain that, sure, you could take responsibility for some of your DNA, maybe your child was adopted and bless you for that too, right? Just because they came out of your womb or from your heart, born from your heart, and you've raised them does not mean that they are a mirror reflection of you as a means to fulfill your insecurity. And I'm saying this because I did this too, okay? So this contract is, you have likely tried all the other means that you can think of to Get your child to understand the value of education. Get them to understand how important this is now, here, today, and how what they're choosing to do or not to do now, here, today may really impact the available choices to them in the future. It could be what schools they can go to, right? Their GPA is too low. They're not going to get into the school that they wanted to go to. Or maybe it takes them out of a passion or like a career path that they personally have expressed that they want interest in. And now, because they're not participating in school right now, they're not connecting what the opportunity in the future to right now. And that is what gets you and I hooked and our panties in a knot so far wedged up our butt that we can't move. We're going to need an enema to get those things out. I'm sorry if that is too realistic. That gets our panties in a knot. And I don't care if you're a dad watching this. Gaunch. Call it whatever you want. Okay? Your sacks. Your whatever you're wearing. Okay? And then we get more worked up. Because then you get into this. I'm glad you found that humorous. Then you get into the story that it's your job as a parent because you have more perspective. That's true. Of course it's true. You are looking back on your life, right? Your teenager is in their life. Like it's all right now. You're looking back on your life and you want your teenager to have the opportunities that are available to them based on the amazing person that I know you believe they are. And so your job is to constantly reinforce, but the future, but the future, but the future. And your job is to reinforce this perspective of future facing rather than being stuck perhaps in the now, as teenagers often get, because their world is so visceral and right now and overwhelming. And that's the nature of the teen brain, okay? And so your job is to reinforce this perspective. And that, my friends, is what I call the potential gap. That your job is to consistently reinforce how they are falling short of their potential. And that is partly what I think you're trying to get in this contract, because you have already tried all other means to get them to care, to shift them around, and those aren't working. So now you're resorting to some kind of legal document like a contract, because if they sign that, you have instant justification to react and to punish. Now, there's nothing important to be in the contract. I'm going to get to that, okay? A contract is used that is enforceable by law. Now, here's the other thing that I want you to understand about a contract, okay? Yeah, the potential gap. All you're doing is consistently reinforcing how they're falling short of where you see them and falling short of future opportunities. You can't tell the future. I failed out of grade 11 classes. Hi, my name is Allie. I got Fs. I failed out. It's on my dogwood, like as in transcript. I redid the classes in grade 12. Exhibit A, almost employable, not doing too bad. Okay? So this, might they have to upgrade? Yeah, they might have to do all that too. But when you are talking about a contract, you are using it as justification. I want you to hear that. Justification of your enforcement to therefore use punishment, which is a tool to elicit fear or pain to get your teenager to change their behavior. That does not teach accountability. It doesn't. The purpose of a contract is one thing and one thing only. It is about protecting your investment. That's the purpose of a contract. It is about making sure that you get out what you deem as valuable based on what you're putting in. The roof over their head, the food you put on the table, the gas, the vehicle, the time, the driving around, the speaking to teachers maybe, the helping them with their homework, the getting them up in the morning, like all of the things that you have deeply sacrificed and invested in this human being who's basically, yeah, private school fees for sure. School fees, activities, sports. That's a great, thank you. I even forgot all that. What the contract is doing is simply trying to make sure that your return on investment feels valuable. That's it. That's what it's about. It's about you saying, you haven't been worth the investment so far. You're not giving me the return that I feel is valuable. So now we're going to write a contract, because if you fall short, it's enforceable by law, aka punishment. That's all. That is the number one reason, is you are protecting yourself. A contract is making sure, is about you. A contract to get your teenager to engage in school, get good grades. It's about you. It's not about them. It's about you. Yeah, thank you, Monique. Yeah, you tried them, and yeah, trying to control by fear of punishment. Yeah. And again, I totally get it. And I love that you were so willing to see this. It's because you were trying to help them understand accountability. Totally get that. Bless you. Yes. Okay. A contract to your teenager, and a contract is simply a reinforcement of shame. That's it. A reinforcement of failure. Oh, thank you, Robin. A contract is about what you're getting out. That's it. A contract is actually has nothing to do with mentorship, has nothing to do with supporting your teen's mental health, has nothing to do with you being required to change or be curious about your, say, ingrained parenting beliefs from when you were younger. It's not requiring you to get out of your comfort zone and better understand your teenager and where they're at today. It's not even requiring you to be their advocate. It's making sure you get out what you already feel is more than you already feel you've put in more than you're getting out. So now you're at a contract. It's about you. There is nothing supportive, nothing about a contract, because it reinforces failure. It reinforces the potential gap about how your teenager is falling short of your expectations, about how they're not living up to the potential that you want them to. It's not encouraging. There's no, it's not compassionate. It's criticism, and criticism is toxic. Shame, it reinforces failure. Shame reduces self-confidence. It lowers self-esteem. It lowers resilience, because the contract, when your teenager falls short of the contract and is now the consequences being enforced on them, what happens is your teenager learns that failure is internalized, that they in fact are a failure, and they begin to lose hope because they believe they don't have what it takes to do it again. They believe that they aren't good enough to try again or keep trying. So you're lowering resilience, you're creating hopelessness, which is a way of thinking that lowers the odds. It lowers motivation, I can tell you that one for free, and that they're not actually, they're not gonna keep trying. It's not inspirational. It's not aspirational. It's not inspirational at all. It is critical and shaming. Okay, so here's what I want to. Couple things I want to do. Number 2, I want to talk to you about an agreement. Okay, so here's the definition of an agreement, and I think this is totally what you were aiming for. Again, I got nothing against. This is going to take maybe till the end of my days to undo the old parenting model. Not because you're wrong or you're bad, but because it's really pervasive. And so it's good. I'm glad you're here. This isn't about you being wrong or bad. I just can't say that enough. Okay. And your parents aren't either. They did the best they could with what they knew. So an agreement is harmony or accordance in opinion or feeling. A position of resulting in agreeing. It's a negotiated and typically, it's a negotiated agreement between two parties towards a course of action. Okay? So it doesn't say here about it being legal. It doesn't say it's like widely enforceable. It's an agreement. Now, here's the thing about an agreement. An agreement requires all parties to come to the table. An agreement is not about a legally binding document where it's about where you're just making sure you get out what you feels valuable that you put in. An agreement is about both parties coming to the table. An agreement is about you saying, what can we do to support you? Thanks, Ellen. Thanks for joining. It's about saying, what can we do? So that means you might need to look at what does support look like for your teen. Now, look, if your teenager is in a really bad spot, depression, anxiety, school avoidance, all of those things, they may not be communicating anything to you. They may be completely shut down. And that's exactly why I help parents, and where I help parents, because I was that kid. I was that kid feeling out. I wouldn't talk to my parents. I was terrified of my parents. I hated them at the time. I saw them as part of the problem. And so I wouldn't tell them anything. So understanding what your child needs for support that is going to be different than what you are currently saying. Yeah, your teen would say, I don't know. So that's why parents come to me, because I translate what the heck that means, because I was that teen. So it means saying, hey, look, what we're doing, well, first of all, what you got to say is we're not doing contracts anymore, because we know that when your mental health matters, and when we make your mental health a priority, your confidence will build, and therefore so will your engagement, and maybe your marks will as well. But we know that we've been focusing on the wrong thing. We've been trying to control you via punishment, fear, and consequences, which is actually making your mental health worse. And that's statistically proven. So you can go to your teen and say that. We were doing the best we could with what we knew. And we know differently now. So we're going to do different. So even if your teen is saying, I don't know, you can say, that's okay. It's okay that you don't know. We're going to figure this out. We're going to figure it out together. If you just said that, if you just went to your teen and said that, it would be everything. Okay? So there's that part of it. Okay? Then there's an agreement means that you are willing to participate in finding out what support looks like. So period, bar none. The difference between a contract and agreement is a contract is about punishment and reinforcement. It's about you. Period. An agreement is about your teen. You are going to get on team teen. You're going to get on their team. And that can sound like a lot, because it sounds like I get that what I'm asking you to do, which is actually what I'm asking you to do, is to release the need to control them, release and have a look at your beliefs about how they have to perform for you to be a good parent, looking at where those stories come from, and letting go of this potential gap that if you will somehow burst into flames if your teenager doesn't get a hold of how they're dwindling away their potential and all of their future options, because you're not a fortune teller. I failed classes, and here I am. I still was employable. Shocking. I still got into some universities. Okay? Your made up story of their future and how it is going to be a failure and less than what you hoped for them is actually in your way. That's what keeping you stuck between a contract and an agreement. An agreement says, I'm going to get over there and I'm going to support you, which means I need to understand you. I need to let go of all of this outdated parenting model that I was raised in, which is, that's a task. And that's what I walk parents through in my program. As Monique pointed out, that she was using the contract and she realizes now that was not at all what they needed, so that you get over there with your teen and you help them You're not so obsessed with their performance because they're not in a mirror or an extension of you as a human being. You are already amazing. You're amazing. You're worthy. You're good enough. Stop projecting your need to fill that on your team. Now let's go over there and be with your team. So an agreement says you're going to come to the table and you're going to do something that is in support of them. So an agreement is where people come to the table and are willing to participate in things that work for themselves, that lift the other up. Contracts will push people down. Agreements are meant to lift parties up. Contracts are what are enforced to make sure you get out. Agreements are what you're willing to put in, even if sometimes you don't get out what you would like at first, because agreements are live documents that are fluid, they're adjusting, especially if your teen is feeling challenged in school. They're adjusting, they're working with what you can and can't do. They're seeing, what works for your teen as your teen begins to share a little more and their mental health improves. So agreements are constantly shifting and changing because you're playing an active role. Contracts are, you get to sit back, write the contract, they sign it, suck it up, perform. You are not playing an active role in their participation or their improvement emotionally. In a contract, you might be doing behavioral. You might be still paying your mortgage or rent. You might still be buying food and making sure they have food. You might still be giving them rides. Those are all behaviors. It doesn't require you to emotionally participate and figure out how to actually connect, which scientifically is where this change actually happens. Agreements support you and your teen to connect so that you begin to understand what support looks like for them and lift them to get through it. Now, here's the last point I want to make. But that's not preparing them for the real world, and they're going to not learn about accountability and responsibility. Okay, here's the science, real quick, of accountability and responsibility. Accountability and responsibility are very vulnerable acts that require courage to even participate in. So when they are enforced, your teenager may or may not shift their behavior quickly in order to just earn back whatever privilege they lost. Then you're not teaching. You think because what you enforce, which elicited pain or fear, was enough to get them to change, and therefore they're accountable. No, they're not. They're just doing it to get back whatever they lost. It actually lowers respect and trust. So no, that doesn't work. Accountability and responsibility require you to model it. How are you modeling your accountability and ownership of your role in the current state of your relationship with your teen? I'm not saying any of this is your fault, because accountability doesn't operate in fault or blame. Accountability is simply about ownership. And if your teenager does not feel emotionally safe, which again, scientifically, people will not take ownership of their outcomes, their actions, their behaviors if they do not feel emotionally safe. Contracts erode emotional safety. Punishment erodes emotional safety. Trying to control your child erodes emotional safety. So this is the shift that's required to go from contract to agreement, is that you understand that accountability starts with you. You don't get to enforce it on your teen. Enforcing it on your teen erodes it. Like, good luck. You are saying, I'm going to take ownership of how I've been in our relationship. I'm not going to blame myself for it. Seriously, don't beat yourself up. That does nothing. Fault and blame are, let's leave that in a court of law, okay? Not necessary in relationships. Saying, I'm going to come to the table. I'm going to learn. This crazy lady on the internet, Allie, she's saying some stuff. I'm going to learn some things to begin to understand you better, to play a different role. And can we just remove, it's not because you're wrong, you're not bad, you're not failing. Oh my gosh, please stop. You're not any of those things. And if you want to play the role of accountability, then you're going to start and you're going to say to your teen, this is what I've been doing. This is what I've learned. I've learned new information. I'm going to try this different. It's going to be messy. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to get some support to figure it out. Accountability says because see, a contract is requiring your team to be accountable. You're trying to enforce accountability on your team, but you're not actually playing. Because accountability and responsibility have emotional underpinning to them. And a contract, you are not playing that game. You're just asking your teenager to play that game. So it doesn't work. Accountability and responsibility are an invitation because they're very vulnerable. So you start being accountable. You start taking responsibility for your parenting, for your learning. I'm not saying you're not responsible right now. And if you're backed up by what I'm saying and you want to unfollow and close me, then this is where you need to keep listening. So yes, Robin, contracts are very one-sided. It's about you. It's not about your teen. In order to have an agreement, you need to model accountability and responsibility. That is what builds the emotional safety because it's without fault or blame. And I understand that's a widely perverted version of accountability that's out in the world, is it sounds like you suck and it's fault, blame, it's very punitive. That's actually not the definition of accountability. I actually will if I can spell. Oh, apparently I can't spell. So it's about taking ownership, okay? That's it. It's ownership. I'm taking ownership of my behavior. I'm taking ownership of my impact. And then you get to decide. So when you start modeling that, you build the emotional safety that is necessary for your teenager to ever want to play that game, which is a later result, okay? And then you can create agreements that are intended to lift all parties, not drive people down. So model accountability. So take responsibility. Robin, that's what I've said, is that you go to your teen and say, you know what? I've realized that what I'm doing may not be getting the results that I'm looking for. I've realized that what I'm doing has been me trying to get performance out of you so I feel better about myself. That's accountability. I've realized that what I'm trying to do is control your behavior using punishment and consequences to get you to change. Scientifically, I now know that doesn't work. That's accountability. All of those things are accountability. Saying to your teen, I now know different. I'm going to do different. That's accountability. That's it. It's not about fault, blame. So when you start modeling that, you are better equipped to use an agreement and you can ditch contracts so that you and your teenager can actually begin. First of all, your teenager probably needs to connect with themselves. They are so shut down. They're probably not connected to themselves. That you help your teenager to connect to themselves so that then they can begin to connect to you because you're modeling scientifically proven, research-based, healthy relationship tools in an agreement that lift your teenager up. So that builds their confidence. They become hopeful, which is a way of thinking that creates resilience, increased confidence, and more motivation. If this is something that you want to shift between you and your teen, first of all, I love you. I love your courageous heart, and I thank you for being here. Second of all, once I get this posted, type support below. Actually, no, type school. Type school below, and I'm going to get you some resources that you can begin to start shifting this right away. Because this has never been more important, and I want to be there to support you, and I want to give you everything that I've got, having been that teen that went through it with well-meaning parents, and now having raised two amazing teenagers who are adults myself. So you can do this, Robin. I believe in you. I believe in you, and you don't have to do it alone. It's okay. You don't have to do it alone. Okay, I'm going to get this posted, and then I want you to type school below, and I'm going to get you those tools that I have for you. Bless you. I love you. Have a wonderful, happy holiday season. Merry Christmas. I will see you again soon. Bye.